At William H. Carter Elementary, the hallways always smelled faintly of pencil shavings and hope. That evening the custodians had mopped the floors until they shone like a quiet pond, and the posters along the walls, "Book Fair this Friday," looked extra bright under the fluorescent hum. I arrived early because I am the kind of man who fixes things before they flood. The habit comes from my work, and from other places I don't talk about. I parked my rattling van beneath the street lamp, smoothed the crease on my shirt where my name patch, Raphael, was beginning to crack, and carried a blue notebook whose pages had waited patiently for my courage. The classroom where the PTA met had been rearranged into a horseshoe of desks, a big mouth ready to say yes or no. On the whiteboard, someone had drawn an owl and written "Readers are leaders" in bubble letters. Folding chairs lined the back wall. A tray of brownies sat on a desk near the door, and beside it a coffee maker struggled to keep up, hissing like a tired radiator. Parents drifted in with their jackets folded over one arm, faces lit by the glow of phones they tried not to look at. They had the polished look of people who were used to being heard, fleece vests, clean sneakers, that brisk tilt of the head that says, "I know where the meeting is going." I nodded to those who glanced my way. Some smiled, some didn't. I practiced my sentence in my head the way you practice a prayer when you are not sure God speaks your language. "Good evening. My name is Raphael. My daughter is Anna. I would like to speak about the library." Simple, 4 boards laid across a stream. A woman with careful hair and a silver watch called the meeting to order. She had the calm, efficient voice of someone who had run many meetings and expected this one to behave. "Welcome, everyone," she said. "We'll move quickly: budget, volunteers, safety reminders, and then the big one, the library." The library. The word lifted its head inside me and then lay down again. We went through the list. People volunteered for picture day. A father talked about traffic cones and a safer drop-off loop. Someone argued that the Halloween playlist should be festive, not frantic. There was the clean cheerfulness of agreement, the easy rhythms of people fluent in a place. When the agenda finally reached item 5, the room seemed to lean forward. The woman with the silver watch tapped her pen. "The library is overdue for a refresh," she said. "Shelves are original. The carpet is a trip hazard. Our collection is, well, let's just say it smells like a yard sale in July. We have some funds, but not enough to do it right. Ideas." A ripple of conversation, bake sales, a gala, matching gifts. Someone said their company might sponsor a reading nook. Another said corporate would need tax paperwork. He could send a template. A man in bright white running shoes said we should be realistic about liabilities. I stood up. My chair scraped the tile, a sound like a small mistake. The room turned its face to me. I felt my pulse in my fingers. "Good evening," I began, too softly. I cleared my throat. "Good evening, my name is Raphael, my daughter is Anna." I held the notebook a little tighter. "I would like to speak about the library." The syllables slid wrong in my mouth. I heard it, so did they. It was not loud, the sound that followed. It never is. A cough that wore a smile as a mask. 2 mothers leaned together, the blonde one with curls shaped like question marks covering her mouth with a hand that had no reason to hide. A father set his coffee down and looked at his phone as if it had rescued him. The man in the white shoes smiled, not at me exactly, but in my direction, and said, "We'll need to involve professionals for any structural changes. For liability." Liability. Such a long word for such a small door. I stayed standing. "I can help," I said carefully, as if stepping on narrow stones in a river. "I work with hands. I can build shelves, fix wall, fix carpet. I can also help with buying new books for children." There was a pause, the kind a room takes when it would rather move on. The woman with the watch offered me the kind of smile you give a child holding a heavy box. "Thank you, Mr. Flores," she said. "It's great to see initiative." She turned back to the horseshoe. "Other ideas?" I sat down without meaning to, the way you do when the body remembers gravity. My cheeks burned. I wrote the word library on the top of my page the way it is supposed to be spelled, each letter neat and sure, as if certainty could be built from ink. The conversation flowed around me again. Silent auction, corporate match. I have a connection at a carpet place. Someone joked about naming rights. Laughter rippled, easy and friendly. I felt the laughter slide along my skin, looking for a place to enter. It didn't find one, not right away, but it left a chill. There are many kinds of laughter. The kind that lifts you up and the kind that weighs you down. You learn the difference even when you don't know how to say it. A teacher at the back adjusted a row of plastic owls as if to make them face the same direction. For a moment our eyes met. She nodded once, small, human, then looked away. The meeting ended with the scrape of chairs and the soft chorus of goodnights. The blonde mother with the question mark curls touched my sleeve as she passed. "Don't take it the wrong way," she said in a voice that had rehearsal in it. "We just want what's best." I wanted to say me too. The words stood in my mouth and refused to move. Outside, the night had gone crisp. The flag out front snapped softly, as if reminding itself of its job. The sign above the door read William H. Carter Elementary in block letters that would not break, no matter how you said them. I walked to the van and watched my breath leave me in little clouds that didn't know which way to go. "Library," I said to the windshield, slowly. "Library." I said it again. Then again. Practice is a kind of stubbornness that hopes to become grace. On the way home, the streetlights wore halos made by the cold. A boy on a skateboard rolled past with the loose confidence of someone who has never been laughed out of a sentence. At a red light, I checked my hands on the steering wheel. Calluses across the palms, a small cut at the base of the thumb from a copper pipe that had not wanted to be persuaded that afternoon. Hands are honest. They tell you exactly what they've done. Anna was already asleep when I let myself into our apartment. She had left her shoes by the door and her backpack under the small table she used for art. A dragon she had drawn watched me from the refrigerator, its eyes kind, its teeth a little too sharp. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the blue notebook. The word library waited for me at the top of the page like a dare. I wrote under it, shelves, light, quiet corners. I wrote, beanbags that feel like clouds. I wrote, new books that smell like beginning. The apartment hummed with the low music of appliances. I could hear, through the thin wall, our neighbor turning a page. Somewhere downstairs a door closed with the careful click of someone trying not to wake a child. When the city is kind, it is because people are trying. I turned the page and drew a small square in the corner. It's something I do when I don't know what comes next. A place to hold a number or a word or a promise when it is ready. I did not fill it in, not yet. At the top of a clean page I wrote my sentence again, the one I had practiced in the van. "Good evening. My name is Raphael. My daughter is Anna. I would like to speak about the library." On the paper the sentence looked sturdy, the way a bridge looks when you walk across it in daylight. In the room, the word library still wobbled in my mouth. I whispered it to the tabletop until the syllables began to obey me. The laminate was cool beneath my fingertips. There is a particular loneliness to being almost understood. You can see the shore you want to reach. The water is not deep, only cold. The people on land wave as if the distance were nothing at all. You smile so they will keep waving. I closed the notebook and ran my thumb along the edge of the pages, feeling the softness that comes from being turned and turned. I looked in on Anna, the small rise and fall beneath her blanket like the tide of a gentle ocean. I thought of the library at her school smelling like a yard sale in July. I thought of the owl on the whiteboard and how someone had taken the time to draw it. At the sink I washed my hands as if words might come off like dirt. They didn't. They never do. But the water was warm and that helped. Before bed I stood by the window and looked down at the street, at the quiet cars and the sleeping trees. I said the word one more time, not to the glass, not to the city, but to myself. Library. It landed better. Not perfect, but better. Sometimes that is enough to go on. I turned off the light. In the dark, my mouth made a small promise my hands would later be asked to keep. The morning after the meeting, I moved through the apartment like a man carrying an invisible weight. Anna was bent over her cereal bowl, tapping the back of her spoon against the rim while humming the song she'd learned in music class. She was light in her body, light in her voice. She didn't notice how heavy I felt. I poured coffee into the chipped mug that had survived more kitchens than I cared to remember. The steam rose and fogged my glasses. It smelled of burnt toast, of mornings that had come and gone with little ceremony. Across from me, Anna asked whether she could paint after school if she finished her homework. I said yes, but my voice was flat, caught in the net of the night before. I didn't tell her about the laughter. Children don't need every shadow. They learn about shadows soon enough. On the walk to school, Anna skipped ahead on the cracked sidewalk, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She turned back to wave before running up the steps, her braids swinging. I stood there a moment too long, the van keys biting into my palm. Behind me, other parents chatted easily, their voices weaving together into something smooth, like a fabric I had never been cut from. At work, I crawled under a sink that leaked with the stubborn rhythm of a clock. Each drip was another memory of last night, the glance exchanged between two mothers, the quick smile that wasn't for me. I tightened the pipe with hands that had fixed things all their lives, but my chest remained loose, untethered. By noon, I drove to a job site across town. A family wanted new cabinets installed. The husband gave me instructions quickly, as if reading them off a page. His wife nodded at me polite, then turned back to her phone. I measured, cut, sanded, and fitted. The sawdust clung to my shirt. Each board slid into place, square and obedient. Wood doesn't laugh, wood only listens. But when I stopped for a sandwich in my van, the laughter found me again. Not loud, never loud, but sharp, like glass tucked inside bread. I remembered how I had said it, library. I could hear it the way they had heard it. Wrong. Heavy, worth a smile. I tried to swallow the bite, but it lodged in my throat. I reached for water and looked out through the windshield. A boy passed with headphones in his ears, nodding to music. He looked at me, then past me, not unkindly, just indifferent. Sometimes indifference hurts more than mockery. The afternoon stretched into evening. When I finally turned the key in our apartment door, Anna was sitting cross-legged on the floor, drawing a picture of a house with stars above it. She lifted the paper to show me. "It's us, Daddy, that's you, that's me, and those are the stars Mommy liked." Her voice carried the memory into the room before I could stop it. My wife, Alina, used to sit at that very window and point out constellations as if they were neighbors. She had a way of naming them in Spanish and then in English so Anna could know both. "Das lenguas, das wings," she would say, 2 wings. I stood in the doorway longer than I should have. The sound of Anna's pencil scratching across paper like a metronome. Alina's face came back to me, thinner in those last months, but her eyes still burning with something that refused to go out. It was in that hospital room with its smell of bleach and tired hope that she had pulled me close. Her hand had been light on mine, almost weightless. "Rafa," she had whispered, her breath barely stirring the air. "Don't let them shame you for trying." At the time I thought she meant the doctors, the insurance papers, the mountain of bills that kept climbing even when she could not. But her words had outgrown that room. They followed me into every hallway where my tongue stumbled, every meeting where my accent felt like a spotlight. Now, sitting at our kitchen table while Anna colored in her stars, those words came back with a clarity that made my chest ache. "Don't let them shame you for trying." I poured water into a glass, watching the ripples settle. What is shame, really? A mirror held too close. A laugh that cuts the string of your words before they can fly. Shame is a thief, and last night I had handed it my keys. But Alina's voice refused to fade. It said trying is not weakness. Trying is the proof of love. And love, even when broken, is stronger than the laughter of strangers. Anna came to me then, tugging at my sleeve. "Daddy, can we read a book before bed?" Her eyes were wide, expectant. I hesitated, thinking of the word that had betrayed me. Library. I nodded. We sat on the couch and she chose a picture book about a dog who wanted to fly. I stumbled over a few lines, the vowels bending. She didn't correct me. She laughed, but it was the kind of laughter that lifted, not weighed. When she was asleep, I returned to the kitchen and opened my blue notebook again. The page with library at the top waited. I wrote beneath it in smaller letters, "Don't let them shame you for trying." The ink bled slightly into the paper as if the words wanted to root themselves there. I closed the notebook gently, like tucking in a child. The apartment was quiet. Outside, the city breathed its restless rhythm. I pressed my palms together and whispered into the silence, not as a prayer but as a promise. "I will not." The following week, I arrived early to pick Anna up from William H. Carter Elementary. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the playground, where children shouted and chased one another with the unburdened joy that only comes before homework and bedtime. I leaned against the fence, waiting. Clusters of parents stood in their usual circles, trading updates about weekend soccer games, music lessons, or vacation plans. Their voices carried casually, but I heard what lived beneath them: certainty. certainty that their children would join teams, attend camps, walk easily through hallways where their names fit without stumbling, certainty I had never owned. Anna emerged from the building, her backpack half unzipped, a drawing sticking out like a tongue. She waved when she saw me, but before she reached the gate she paused beside a girl from her class. The girl showed her a new tablet, glossy and thin. Anna leaned closer, her eyes wide, before the other girl's mother called her away. When Anna reached me, she said softly, "Daddy, did you see? Mia got a tablet for reading. She says she can take it to the library and borrow books on it." Her voice held no complaint, only wonder, but I felt the quiet sting beneath it. I brushed a loose strand of hair from her forehead. "One day, my Silo. For now, we have books at home." She nodded, but her shoulders dipped as she walked beside me to the van. That night, after she had fallen asleep, I sat at the kitchen table and thought of the small slumps I saw in her shoulders. The way her backpack straps slid lower each day, as if even they felt the weight. It wasn't only the laughter from the meeting that haunted me now. It was this divide, wide and silent, between what some children had and what others simply dreamed of. I had seen it in the classrooms when I volunteered to fix a broken shelf. Half the desks filled with fresh markers, bright folders, stickers in neat boxes, the other half cluttered with pencils chewed to stubs and notebooks worn thin. Teachers stretched their arms to cover the gap, but arms have limits. Anna never asked for much. She carried her drawings home like treasure, taped them to the refrigerator with the careful pride of someone guarding a museum. But I knew she noticed the gaps, even if she didn't name them. Children always notice. They just don't always tell you. One evening, I overheard her on the phone with her cousin in Houston. "We don't have computers in our library yet," she said, her voice smaller than usual. "But maybe one day. My dad says maybe." The words cut deeper than the laughter at the PTA meeting. Laughter can be swallowed, endured. But this, hearing my daughter shrink her voice so the world wouldn't hear what she lacked, this I could not allow. The next day I drove past the school at lunchtime. Children poured onto the playground, their coats half-zipped, their shoelaces trailing. Across the yard, the library sat hunched between two wings of the building. Its windows were small and clouded, the curtains yellowing at the edges. The bricks had dark stains that no one bothered to scrub. I parked across the street and watched the children run by it without glancing up. A library should call to them like a lighthouse. This one sat like a tired shed. I closed my eyes and remembered the library of my own childhood, in the town I left behind. The floorboards creaked and the lights flickered, but it had smelled of paper and ink, and the librarian had known my name. I had felt rich inside that place, richer than I ever felt outside it. Now, looking at Anna's school, I thought, what if I could give her that? Not just her, every child who walked those hallways with shoulders slumping. A place where they could walk taller, even for an hour. That night I opened my blue notebook again. The word library still stood at the top. Stubborn, beneath it I began to sketch, not real blueprints, just the bones of an idea. Rows of shelves, bright light pouring through larger windows, beanbags clustered in corners like clouds waiting for children to land. A space that said to every child, "You belong here." I thought of Alina again, her voice, her fire, her promise. "Don't let them shame you for trying." Trying, I realized, was not just speaking up in meetings. It was building something so strong, so undeniable that even laughter could not crack it. I set down my pen and stared at the page. The divide between parents at those meetings, between children on the playground, it did not have to remain a canyon. Maybe it could be bridged, not with perfect English, but with hands that knew how to build. Anna stirred in her sleep down the hall, murmuring something I couldn't hear. I closed the notebook, placed it carefully in the center of the table, and whispered to the empty room, "Then I will try." On Sunday morning, Anna and I walked to the corner laundromat with a basket balanced on my hip. She skipped beside me, clutching her stuffed rabbit in one hand. The dryers inside spun with the dull roar of weather, the smell of detergent thick in the air. While we waited, Anna sat on a plastic chair coloring in her notebook. I leaned against the machine and let my eyes wander. Families came and went, some joking, some arguing, all of them carrying their week's worth of living in cloth bags. I thought about how similar our lives looked in piles of fabric, and yet how different they were once we folded ourselves back into houses. Anna lifted her picture toward me. "It's a library, Daddy, see. These are the shelves, and that's me in the corner." Her library had windows wide enough to let the sun in, with plants hanging from the ceiling and a rainbow painted across the wall. She had drawn herself smiling, her hands on a book twice her size. Beautiful, I told her, and it was. It was also impossible to ignore that her drawing looked nothing like the dim little room at her school. When the last shirt was folded and the basket strapped again under my arm, we stepped out into the crisp morning. The church across the street was ringing its bells. Anna tilted her face up at the sound, eyes wide. "It sounds like they're saying hello," she whispered. Her words sat in me all the way home. Bells greeting strangers, books greeting children. What if a building could speak kindness where people sometimes could not? That evening, after Anna fell asleep, I opened the closet and reached for the shoebox tucked behind old coats. Inside was the ledger I had carried for years. Its pages were worn, the ink fading in places, but the numbers stood stubborn, lined up like soldiers. Every job, every payment, every dollar set aside in quiet corners of my life. I remembered the first entry, a small plumbing repair in a neighbor's kitchen, paid in cash, $25. I had written it down in shaky letters, promising myself I would not spend it on anything less than the future. Over the years the entries stacked. Weekend jobs, late-night calls, holidays spent fixing pipes when I should have been at home with my family. Alina used to tease me about that ledger. "You treat it like a diary," she'd say, her eyes soft. And maybe it was. Each line was not just money but proof that I had refused to quit, proof that I had stayed. I turned the pages slowly, the numbers growing larger until they reached the present. I added the last deposit from last week's work. When I totaled the column, the number at the bottom startled me, $187,500. For a long time I only stared at it. My hands trembled. It was more than I had ever allowed myself to think about. More than enough to keep Anna and me safe if something went wrong. But also enough to build something, to change something. The thought frightened me as much as it thrilled me. That much money was a wall against the unknown. But what use is a wall if it only keeps you standing still? I closed my eyes and saw Alina in the hospital, her hair thinner than it had once been but her voice strong. "Don't let them shame you for trying." She had not meant only speaking in front of PTA parents. She had meant trying in the bigger sense, risking yourself for what matters. She had meant not letting fear dictate the size of our lives. I pressed my hand flat against the page, as if to test whether the numbers were real. They did not move. They did not lie. What if this ledger was not only a record of the past, but a key to the future? What if, instead of protecting the money like a dragon hoarding treasure, I placed it in the world and let it grow into something Anna could touch, something children could step into without shame? I took out the blue notebook and laid it open beside the ledger. On one page, years of saving. On the other, the rough sketch of Anna's imagined library, the beanbags like clouds, the light streaming through wide windows. The two books stared back at me like halves of the same story, work and dream, past and possibility. I picked up my pen and drew a line between them. Anna stirred in the next room, mumbling in her sleep. I sat still, listening, the pen resting in my hand. The apartment was quiet, but inside me something had begun to move. Not anger, not humiliation, something steadier. Resolve is not loud. It doesn't shout in meetings or wave from across playgrounds. Resolve is the slow tightening of a knot, the silent promise you make when no one is watching. I wrote beneath the sketch in my notebook, "One day Anna will walk into a library that belongs to her, and I will build it." I put the pen down and closed both books, sliding the ledger back into its shoebox. My hands felt lighter. The laughter from the PTA meeting was still there in memory, but it no longer stung. It had turned into fuel. I turned off the light, the room settling into darkness. But in the quiet, I could almost hear Alina's voice again, not fading this time, but steady. "Good, Rafa. Try." The next morning began like so many others. Toast for Anna, coffee for me, the clatter of her shoes as she searched for the second sock that always disappeared. Life has a way of disguising its turning points as ordinary days. But all through breakfast, the shoebox in the closet pulled at me. The number I had written in the ledger the night before, $187,500, glowed like a lantern inside my chest. It was not just money anymore. It was possibility. After dropping Anna at school, I returned home and carried the shoebox to the table. The cardboard edges were frayed, corners softened from years of opening and closing. Inside lay the ledger, envelope stuffed with receipts, and a few faded photographs Alina had once tucked there. Our wedding picture, Anna as a baby curled on her chest, Alina herself sitting in sunlight with a book half open in her lap. I lifted the ledger again, running my fingers over the spine. Each entry was a story: clogged drains at midnight, pipes that burst in basements that smelled of mold, weekends sacrificed, holidays missed, work that most people never thought about unless water rose above their ankles. All those hours, all those sacrifices, lined up until they became this total, this sum that could shift a life. For years I had guarded it as a shield. If illness came, if work dried up, if Anna needed something beyond my reach, here was protection. But now another thought pressed in. What if the money was not a shield at all, but a seed planted in soil larger than myself? I pictured Anna again at the laundromat, proudly showing me her drawing of a library that didn't exist. I thought of her shrinking voice on the phone with her cousin. My dad says maybe. Maybe was not enough. Maybe was a half-built bridge. The fear rose quickly after the vision. What if I gave it away and left us unprotected? What if sickness or accident came and there was no shield left? A man cannot gamble with his child's safety. But neither could I ignore the weight of Alina's last words. Don't let them shame you for trying. Trying was never safe. It never had been. Crossing a border. Starting over in a language that tripped me daily. Raising Anna alone when grief pressed against my chest like a stone. None of it had been safe, and yet here we were. I stood and paced the kitchen, the ledger open on the table. My reflection in the window looked older than I remembered, lines at the eyes, shoulders rounded from years of carrying more than tools. Still my hands were steady. They had always been steady. That evening Anna sat on the floor coloring while I cooked rice and beans. "Daddy," she asked, "when I grow up, can I be a teacher?" "Of course," I said, stirring the pot. She looked up, her face serious. "Then I'll make sure all the kids have new books, not old ones that smell funny." The words landed heavy and I had to turn back to the stove so she wouldn't see my face. Even she, her small shoulders and big eyes, already knew what her school's library was missing. After she went to bed, I took out both the ledger and the blue notebook. On one page, the number $187,500. On the other, the sketch of shelves and light, two lives waiting to collide. I began to write calculations in the margins. How much for shelves, for carpet, for computers? I didn't know exact figures, but guesses came. Numbers spilled down the page, messy but determined. As I wrote, I realized something. This project was larger than me. I could build shelves, paint walls, carry boxes, but a library was not only wood and paint. It needed books, software, wiring, coordination with the district. I could not do it alone. And so another thought pressed in. The principal, Mrs. Cunningham. She had sharp eyes but also a softness buried beneath them. She had listened politely when I spoke at the meeting, even if others hadn't. Perhaps she would listen again if I came not with a clumsy word but with a number, a plan. The idea scared me. Speaking once had earned laughter. Speaking again with something so bold might bring worse. But then I imagined Anna years from now, walking past that tired little room with its yellow curtains, telling herself maybe. The thought hardened me. I turned to a new page in the blue notebook and wrote in large letters, "Proposal, new library." Beneath it I listed, shelves, paint, computers, books, reading corner. And at the bottom one more word, legacy. The letters sat uneven, but they glowed with a strange light. Legacy was larger than a shield, larger than a seed. Legacy meant Anna could stand one day without bowing her head. Legacy meant laughter could be answered not with anger but with something undeniable, something that filled a room and silenced even the sharpest tongue. I closed the notebook, heart pounding. The ledger and the notebook lay side by side like two halves of a bridge, waiting to be joined. And I knew then what I would do. I would take them both to Mrs. Cunningham, not tomorrow, not next week, soon. Before fear could shrink the word maybe back into my mouth. 2 days later, I asked the secretary at William H. Carter Elementary if I might have a word with the principal. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, but she led me down the hallway lined with construction paper collages. "She's busy, but I'll check," she said. A few minutes later, she waved me in. Mrs. Cunningham's office smelled faintly of lemon polish and paper. Stacks of files lined the edges of her desk, but she sat straight-backed, her hands folded neatly, Her eyes, sharp and watchful, met mine with polite curiosity. "Mr. Flores," she said, "how can I help you?" I placed the blue notebook and the ledger on the desk between us. My palms were damp. "I want to speak about the library." Her expression softened slightly, though I thought I saw a flicker of memory, the PTA meeting, the stumble, the laugh that followed. "Yes." I opened the notebook first, turning it so she could see. Sketches of shelves, light pouring from wide windows, beanbags gathered like small islands. "This is my idea, a new library for the children." She leaned forward, scanning the page. I flipped to another where my messy calculations filled the margins. Shelves, carpet, computers, books. I tapped the bottom of the page where one word stood: legacy. She smiled faintly, though there was hesitation in her eyes. "That is ambitious, Mr. Flores. The PTA is discussing fundraising already, but a project like this requires substantial resources." I slid the ledger forward. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. "I have savings, $150,000. I want to give it." The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Mrs. Cunningham blinked once, then again, as if making sure she had heard correctly. "You mean donate?" "Yes, donate." My accent bent the word, but it did not break. "I want Anna and every child to have a library that feels new, strong, a place they can be proud." Her fingers hovered above the ledger but did not open it. "That is an extraordinary offer." She searched my face as if trying to measure the truth in me. "Are you sure, Mr. Flores? That is no small sum." I nodded. "I worked many years, saved every dollar. I cannot take it with me when I go, but I can leave this." Her lips parted, but no words came for a moment. Then she said softly, "Why?" The question hit me in the chest. Why? Because Anna had drawn a rainbow library in her notebook. Because she whispered maybe when she should shout yes. Because Alina had told me not to let shame win. Because a laugh in a classroom had burned too deep to ignore. But I only said because children deserve better. She sat back, her eyes still fixed on me. The clock on her wall ticked loudly. "Finally," she said, "this would change everything. But such a gift would have to be presented to the district, approved officially. There are forms, contracts, a process, and donors of this size usually prefer recognition. A plaque, a ceremony." I shook my head quickly. "No plaque, no ceremony, not until," I hesitated. "Until the library is real, until the children walk inside. For now, I ask only one thing: keep my name quiet." Her brow furrowed. "You want anonymity?" "Yes. They laugh already when I speak. I want them to see the library first. Let it speak for me. Later, if needed, you may tell." Her gaze softened, though her voice remained firm. "That is unusual, Mr. Flores, but not impossible." She tapped the notebook gently. "What you are proposing, it is remarkable. I will take this to the board." I exhaled, realizing only then that I had been holding my breath. She closed the ledger and slid it carefully back toward me. "You must keep that safe until the paperwork is arranged. I will begin tomorrow." I rose, my knees stiff. "Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham." As I reached the door, she spoke again, her voice lower. "Mr. Flores." I turned. Her expression was thoughtful, almost reverent. "Whatever happens, you should know this is the kind of gift that changes not just a school but a life." I swallowed hard and nodded. In the hallway, children's artwork fluttered on the bulletin boards: a paper sun, a construction paper heart, a cutout owl. I touched the strap of my tool belt where it hung heavy at my side. My hands, tired as they were, had found new work. Work that would not just patch leaks or fix walls, but build something larger. That night, I placed both the ledger and the notebook back in the shoebox, sliding it beneath the coats. But as I turned off the closet light, I whispered into the dark, "Soon." News at a school never travels in straight lines. It drifts like chalk dust, carried on breezes of speculation, coloring everything before anyone can say what is true. Within a week of my meeting with Mrs. Cunningham, the whispers began. I noticed them first when I came to fix a leaky faucet in the teacher's lounge. Two mothers waiting near the office lowered their voices when I walked past. One leaned closer to the other and murmured, "I heard a donor's coming forward." The other's eyes widened. "Really? Who?" Their words floated after me, not meant for my ears, but I caught them anyway. Later, during pickup, I stood by the fence with other parents. A father in a fleece vest was holding court, his voice confident. "It has to be an alumnus, someone with deep pockets. They don't just hand out 6 figures." Heads nodded around him, impressed by his certainty. Another mother added, "I heard it's a tech company trying to make inroads with the district." The idea seemed to satisfy them like a puzzle solved. I stood quietly, my van keys in hand. None of them looked at me. No one even considered that the man in work boots and a patched jacket could be the one behind the rumors. Inside, though, the whispers found Anna. Children always hear what adults think is hidden. One afternoon she climbed into the van with her face clouded. She buckled her seatbelt slowly, then said, "Daddy, some kids were talking about the library. They said someone really rich is paying for it." I kept my eyes on the road. "And what did you say?" She shrugged. "Nothing, I didn't know what to say." Her voice was small, but I caught the weight behind it. She too had never imagined it could be us. The gossip grew. At drop-off, I overheard two women near the flagpole debating whether the donor was a local politician gearing up for re-election. At the laundromat, another parent said she'd heard the library would be named after a wealthy family. Each theory bloomed like a weed, covering the ground so thickly that the truth beneath remained hidden. One evening, as Anna colored at the table, I listened to the hum of the neighborhood outside our window. Cars pulling into driveways, televisions muffled through thin walls, laughter spilling from porches. The whispers about the donor had reached every corner of this town, and yet my name remained untouched, unseen. It was a strange kind of invisibility. On one hand, it protected me. No laughter, no suspicion. On the other, it stung to realize how impossible it seemed to anyone that someone like me could give so much. Anna looked up from her drawing. "Daddy, do you think we'll ever know who the donor is?" I smiled faintly. "Yes, one day." She tilted her head, curious, but I changed the subject, asking about her math homework. She didn't press further. At night, I lay awake, Elena's words circling. "Don't let them shame you for trying." The shame wasn't only in being laughed at anymore, it was in being invisible, dismissed before I even opened my mouth. What they could not imagine, I had already decided to do. The next morning, I passed a group of parents outside the school. They were still at it, each theory more elaborate than the last. "It has to be someone from the city council," one insisted. "Or a foundation," another argued. Their voices carried, confident, full of conviction. I walked by with my tool bag in hand. They barely noticed. That afternoon, Anna came home clutching a flyer about the upcoming library dedication ceremony. Her eyes lit up. "Daddy, it's really happening." I nodded, though my stomach tightened. The ceremony would end the guessing. The whispers that swirled harmlessly around me now would soon crash into the truth. But I reminded myself, let them whisper. The library would speak louder than any rumor. One gray afternoon, as rain streaked the classroom windows, Anna climbed into the van with her backpack clutched tightly to her chest. Her lips trembled, though she pressed them together as if she were holding something in. I knew that look. I had worn it myself too many times. "What happened, my Silo?" I asked softly, starting the engine. She didn't answer at first. The wipers squeaked across the windshield, pushing away the drizzle. Finally, in a voice that barely reached above the hum of the heater, she said, "Some kids laughed at me today." I gripped the steering wheel. "Why?" She hesitated, then whispered, "They said I sound like you when I read out loud." The words pierced me deeper than I thought possible. I glanced at her, but her face was turned toward the window, eyes fixed on the blurred shapes of houses passing by. The raindrops sliding down the glass looked like trails of her silence. I wanted to tell her the kids were wrong, that she spoke beautifully, that she was smarter than any of them. But the truth is, I knew how heavy those words could feel. I had carried them all my life. "Did you say anything back?" I asked gently. She shook her head. I just kept reading, but my cheeks got hot, and later at lunch they whispered again about how you talk. They said maybe I'd never be good at English either. I pulled the van to the side of the road. My throat ached. I turned to face her. She finally looked at me, her eyes wet but defiant, as if she were daring me to tell her it didn't matter. I reached for her hand. "Anna," I said, "your voice is yours, no one else's. When you read, you sound like you, and that is enough, more than enough." Her small fingers curled into mine, but the tears slid down anyway. That night after she fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the ledger. The numbers blurred. I thought of Anna's voice, shrinking under the laughter of children too young to know what cruelty really meant, but old enough to learn it from their parents. I thought of Elena, whispering, "Don't let them shame you for trying." Trying wasn't only about me anymore. It was about Anna. If she was already carrying the weight of my accent, if she was already being measured by my stumbles, then I had to build something that outweighed the laughter. I opened the blue notebook and wrote a new sentence beneath the sketches. The library will be her shield. I imagined Anna walking into a room filled with books that smelled of promise, shelves that stood taller than any insult, a place where no one could tell her she was less because of how she sounded, a place that spoke louder than laughter. The next morning I found her at the table, slowly spooning cereal into her mouth. Her eyes were still shadowed. I kissed the top of her head. "One day soon," I said quietly, "you will walk into a library that is new, a library that belongs to you, and no one will laugh." She looked up, confused but curious. "How do you know?" "Because I am building it," I said. Her eyes widened, but she didn't ask more. She only smiled faintly, the kind of smile that blooms even in soil still damp with tears. As she packed her backpack for school, I realized something. The whispers of the parents, the rumors about the mysterious donor, none of it mattered compared to the look in Anna's eyes at that moment. She needed proof, and I would give it to her, even if it cost me everything. By the time April thawed into May, the rumors had grown wild enough to feel like a separate weather system inside the school. At pickup, I heard them swirl: alumni with fortunes, corporations with agendas, a state senator eager for good press. People spoke with such conviction that sometimes even I wondered if the truth had been a dream. Then, one Thursday afternoon, Anna bounded out of the building clutching a cream-colored envelope. She waved it in the air, her braids flying. "Daddy, we got invited." She handed it to me with both hands as though it were something sacred. On the front in careful cursive was my name, Mr. Rafael Flores. Inside was a formal card. "You are cordially invited to the grand opening of the William H. Carter Elementary Library, Saturday, May 14th. Beneath the schedule of ribbon-cutting and tours, one line stopped my breath: "Special remarks by Rafael Flores, donor." My chest tightened. Until now, my role had been tucked into secrecy, sheltered by Mrs. Cunningham's promise. But here it was, ink on cardstock, proof that invisibility had reached its end. Anna leaned close, her eyes bright. "See, you're giving a speech." I forced a smile. "Yes, it looks like I am." That night, after she had fallen asleep with her invitation pinned above her bed, I sat at the kitchen table with the card in front of me. The gold edges caught the light like fire. My hands trembled as I whispered the words I might one day say. "Good morning. My name is Raphael. My daughter is Anna." Even alone, my tongue stumbled. The next day I found myself called into Mrs. Cunningham's office again. She held a stack of programs in her hands, still warm from the printer. Her face, usually brisk, softened as she spoke. "I know this is daunting," she said. "But your voice matters, Mr. Flores. Children need to hear from the man who made this possible." "I am afraid," I admitted. Her eyes softened further. "Of course you are, but courage is not the absence of fear, it's standing up while the fear is still there." She slid a copy of the program across the desk. I looked at my name printed in bold. My pulse drummed in my ears. That evening I practiced in front of the bathroom mirror. The words felt clumsy, the vowels slipping sideways. I tried again, slower this time. My reflection looked back with tired eyes, but there was something else in them too. A glimmer I hadn't seen since Alina's last days. When I faltered, I remembered her voice. "Don't let them shame you for trying." Anna noticed me muttering lines under my breath as I cooked dinner. She giggled. "You sound funny, Daddy." I winced, but she ran over and hugged me. "Not bad funny, brave funny." Her words lit a small flame inside me. As the days ticked closer to May 14th, the envelope sat on our kitchen table like a silent guest. Each morning Anna touched it before leaving for school, as if it were a lucky charm. Each night I rehearsed, my voice echoing off the thin apartment walls. I was terrified still, but beneath the fear was something steady, like the roots of a tree gripping the soil. The laughter at the PTA meeting had tried to bury me. The whispers in the hallways had erased me. But on May 14th I would stand in the open, no shield left, only my truth. And this time I would not bow my head. The morning of May 14th arrived sharp and bright, as if the sky itself understood the weight of the day. Anna was up before dawn, already dressed in the yellow dress her mother once bought for her. She twirled in the living room, her braids catching the light, while I knotted my tie with fingers that felt too large for such delicate work. "Do you think people will clap for you, Daddy?" she asked, her voice full of hope. I forced a smile. Maybe. But today isn't about me. It's about the library. Still, I couldn't quiet the storm in my chest. When we arrived at William H. Carter Elementary, the parking lot was already filling. Balloons floated near the entrance, tethered to folding tables where teachers laid out programs. I could smell fresh paint and sawdust even before we stepped inside. The building hummed with a different energy, one that comes only when anticipation and pride share the same room. Parents gathered in small knots, chatting and pointing toward the covered doorway at the end of the hall, the library, hidden behind a wide ribbon of red satin. Children tugged at their sleeves, eager to see what waited behind. Mrs. Cunningham spotted us and walked over briskly. She bent to greet Anna, then turned to me. "Everything is ready," she said. Her voice carried both authority and kindness. "We'll begin with a short welcome, then you and Anna will cut the ribbon together." My stomach tightened. "I speak." She nodded. "Yes, just a few words before the ribbon. Save your longer remarks for inside." I looked down at Anna. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "Brave, funny, remember." The gymnasium had been converted into a stage for the opening. Chairs filled the floor and a small podium stood near the ribbon doors. Parents and teachers found their seats, their voices blending into a low hum. I stood off to the side, Anna's hand still in mine, while Mrs. Cunningham stepped to the microphone. "Good morning," she began, her voice clear. "Today is a special day for William H. Carter Elementary. Today we open a new chapter for our children, a chapter built on generosity, vision, and love." The audience leaned forward. She glanced toward me. My throat tightened. "It is my great honor," she continued, "to introduce the donor who made this library possible, a man whose hard work and sacrifice gave our children this gift. Please welcome Mr. Rafael Flores." The room shifted, all eyes turning toward me. For a moment I couldn't move. Then Anna tugged gently and I stepped forward. The applause began hesitantly, then grew, rolling across the room like a wave. I reached the podium, my palms damp against the wood. Faces stared back at me, the same parents who once looked past me in hallways, who had laughed softly when I stumbled over a word. Their eyes now searched for the shape of someone they thought they knew but clearly did not. "Good morning," I began. My voice cracked, but I kept going. "My name is Raphael. My daughter is Anna. I am very proud today." I stopped there, my English bending in my throat, and offered a small smile. "The library will speak more than me. Thank you." It was short, awkward, unfinished, but Anna squeezed my hand, and in her eyes I saw pride that no grammar could touch. Mrs. Cunningham returned to the microphone. "And now Mr. Flores and Anna will cut the ribbon." The golden scissors felt heavy in my grip. Together, Anna and I lifted them. Her small hands pressed against mine. We cut, and the ribbon fluttered to the floor like a curtain dropping after a play. The doors swung open. Gasps filled the room. The library glowed with fresh light. Bright shelves lined the walls, each stacked with new books that gleamed like unopened gifts. The carpet was soft and patterned with stars, leading toward corners filled with beanbags in colors children loved. Computers sat ready along one wall, their screens alive. A mural stretched across the far side, an open book transforming into a sky of birds. Children surged forward, unable to wait. Teachers tried to keep them orderly, but their excitement burst past the rules. Laughter and shouts echoed through the space. "Look at this one. There's a whole series. It smells new." Parents followed more slowly, still absorbing what they saw. Some looked awed. Others looked confused, as if the world had shifted under their feet. I stood in the doorway with Anna at my side, watching them all step into the place I had only imagined months ago at my kitchen table. The whispers, the doubts, the laughter, they seemed far away now. Anna tugged my sleeve. Her eyes shone as she whispered, "We did it, Daddy." And for the first time in a long time, the sound that followed the ribbon's fall was unlike any applause I had ever heard. It wasn't the loud clapping of a sports game or the polite tapping of hands at a recital. It was gasps, sharp and unguarded, the sound of breath being pulled away. For a long moment the parents and teachers did not move. They stared at the library as though they had stumbled into a place they didn't know could exist here. Then the children broke free, laughing, shouting, reaching for books, pulling open drawers. Their joy filled the air like birds scattering into the sky. But the adults stayed still, their faces caught between awe and disbelief. I felt their eyes shift toward me, one by one. There was the father in the fleece vest who had once lectured about liabilities. His jaw was tight, his arms crossed. The blonde mother with the question mark curls stood with her tissues still clutched in her hand, her eyes wide, her daughter tugging at her sleeve to go inside. A few whispered to each other, though their voices carried no confidence now, only uncertainty. It was Anna who pulled me forward. "Come on, Daddy," she whispered, tugging at my hand. "It's ours now." I let her guide me into the library, the carpet springy underfoot. Children darted past, some collapsing into beanbags with their treasures, others running fingers reverently along rows of spines. Teachers followed, trying to shepherd order, but even they looked dazzled, as if they had stepped into a dream. Behind us, the parents finally entered. Their movements were slower, more deliberate. Some picked up books and held them gingerly, as though afraid they might break something too new. Others whispered still, their eyes sliding toward me before darting away again. One father, the same who had spoken at the PTA meeting about involving professionals, cleared his throat loudly. "So it really was you," he said, not unkindly, but with the bluntness of disbelief. "I'll be honest, I didn't think." His words trailed off, the rest swallowed by the sight of Anna beaming as she opened a book about constellations. I nodded once. There was nothing more to add. The library itself was already answering every question. Anna settled into a beanbag, her legs curled under her. She looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. "It feels like magic," she whispered, not only to me but to anyone who cared to listen. That whisper carried farther than I expected. A teacher nearby smiled, tears brightening her eyes. Another mother who had barely acknowledged me in past meetings touched my arm and murmured, "This is beautiful, thank you." Still, not everyone could find their words. Some parents hovered at the edges, glancing from shelf to shelf with a kind of uneasy reverence. Perhaps it was hard to reconcile the man they once overlooked, the handyman with an accent, the father who stumbled through sentences, with the donor who had built this. Mrs. Cunningham stood at the front, watching everything unfold with a smile that trembled at the edges. At one point she caught my eye and nodded, a nod that seemed to say, "They see now. Whether they want to or not, they see." And yet, amid the shifting air, I felt the silence too. Not all silence is the same. Some is respect, some is awe. But some carries the faint sourness of shame, the kind that comes when a person realizes their laughter has been misplaced. I could feel it clinging to the corners of the room. Anna, unbothered, flipped pages as if she had lived here her whole life. "Daddy," she said suddenly, "this book says stars never stop burning even if we can't see them. They keep shining anyway." Her words landed inside me like a quiet revelation. Around us, children laughed, teachers smiled, parents whispered. Some still struggled with the picture of me standing where I did. But Anna's voice was clear, steady, and proud. And in that moment, it was the only sound that mattered. The library buzzed with the energy of children discovering treasures, but slowly misses. Cunningham's voice rose above the laughter. She tapped the microphone that had been rolled to the front corner of the room. "Everyone," she called gently, "before we let the children lose themselves completely, we would like to hear a few words from the man who made all of this possible." The murmurs hushed, though not all at once. Some parents turned toward me with open faces, others with guarded eyes. A few clutched their programs, the page with my name circled now with the weight of truth. Anna looked up from her beanbag, her book still open on her knees. She gave me a thumbs up so small only I could see. I rose. My knees felt heavy, but my feet carried me forward anyway. I stepped behind the microphone, its black cord snaking across the carpet like something alive. My reflection wavered in the polished cover of a new computer monitor. I cleared my throat. "Good afternoon," I began, my accent wrapping tight around the words. "My name is Rafael Flores. My daughter is Anna. And today," I paused, the silence pressing in, "today I am proud." The faces waited, some expectant, some doubtful, some already softened. "I came to this country with hands only," I continued slowly, shaping each word with care. "Hands that fix pipes, hands that carry tools, hands that hold my daughter when she is small, when she cries." I lifted my palms as if they could explain. "English for me is hard. I know my words are broken, but my promise is not." A murmur rippled, not of laughter but of breath drawn in. I pressed forward. "This library," I said, turning slightly so the shelves framed my words, "is built not from perfect sentences but from years of work. From nights I stayed after jobs. From mornings I left before the sun. Every dollar I saved with this in mind, even when I did not know it yet. For Anna, for all your children. I looked toward the corner where Anna sat, her eyes shining. Books do not laugh at an accent, I said. Books do not care if you say the word right or wrong. Books only ask you to open them. And when a child opens a book, she opens a door no one else can close. The room was utterly still now, the only sound the faint rustle of a page turned by a child who could not wait. My wife, I continued, my voice catching. She passed some years ago, but before she left she told me, don't let them shame you for trying. Today I try with all I have. This library is my my gift, for Anna, for her friends, for this school, for this town, because our children deserve more than maybe. I let the words hang, my chest rising and falling. At last I said, I thank you for listening, not to my English, but to my heart. My voice faltered there, but I forced one last line, the one that had waited on the page of my notebook for weeks. My accent may be broken, but my love for these children is whole. For a breath, silence again. Then the sound came, applause, first scattered, then swelling, louder than the ribbon's fall, louder than any doubt. Some parents stood. Others wiped their eyes quickly, embarrassed by their own tears. Teachers clapped with both hands, their faces bright. Anna leapt from her beanbag and ran to me, wrapping her arms around my waist. Her voice, clear and steady, carried above the applause. That was perfect, Daddy. And in her words I heard the only verdict that mattered. The applause swelled and then softened, like waves pulling back from the shore. When the sound finally faded, the room did not return to the same place it had been before. Something in the air had shifted, subtle but undeniable. I stepped down from the microphone, Anna still holding tight to my hand. She looked up at me with such unfiltered pride that for a moment the rest of the room blurred away. But as my eyes adjusted again to the faces before me, I saw them differently than I ever had. Parents who had once looked through me now looked at me, some with tears streaking their cheeks, others with lips pressed tight as if words had betrayed them. The blonde mother with the question mark curls dabbed her eyes with the tissue she had carried all morning. A father who had once argued about liabilities sat very still, his jaw working as though he were chewing on his own regret. And then the children's voices broke through again. Daddy, look, they have the whole series. A boy shouted across the room, his arms wrapped around a stack of books nearly too heavy to carry. Can I check them out already? Another called, tugging at a teacher's sleeve. Their excitement cut clean through the heaviness of adult silence. It reminded everyone why we were here, not for pride, not for redemption, but for them. Mrs. Cunningham moved closer, her eyes bright, her voice lower now. Mr. Flores, she said, in all my years at this school I've never seen anything like this. You didn't just build a library, you gave these children a home inside their own school. Her words landed softly, but around us the applause began again, this time less formal, more human. Parents who had hesitated before now came forward. One mother reached out her hand, her fingers trembling slightly. I misjudged you, she whispered. I thought things about you that weren't fair. And now, seeing this, I feel ashamed. Thank you truly. I shook her hand gently, not with triumph, but with the quiet steadiness of someone who had spent years under dripping pipes and collapsing ceilings. Work had taught me that repairs begin one nail at a time. Perhaps hearts were the same. Another father, the one in the fleece vest, stepped forward. He didn't extend his hand right away. Instead, he looked at Anna, who stood pressed against my side. His voice was rough. Your daughter should be very proud, he said finally. Then, after a long pause, he added, and so should you. Anna beamed, the words washing over her like sunlight. Around us, the library began to fill with more noise, the kind of noise that heals rather than wounds. Teachers guiding children to shelves, parents leaning down to read spines aloud, laughter that rang true this time, not sharp. I found myself standing back, near the entrance, just watching. The mural across the far wall glowed under the new lights, the book turning into a sky of birds. Children traced the painted wings with their fingers as though they were real. Alina would have loved this. I could almost hear her voice, teasing me gently for worrying so much about my accent. See, Rafa, they don't remember your missteps, they remember what you built. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Beside me, Anna tugged at my sleeve. Daddy, can we stay after everyone leaves, just us? Yes, my Silo, I whispered. We can stay. The program continued, with teachers thanking volunteers and the school choir singing a short song about reading. But even as the formalities played out, the eyes of the audience kept drifting back to me. Not with mockery, not with dismissal, but with something heavier: recognition. For years, I had walked these hallways invisible, my name stitched on a work shirt but never spoken with respect. Now, standing in the doorway of a library that smelled of paint and promise, I knew invisibility was no longer possible. And though the attention made me uneasy, Anna's hand in mine anchored me. Every time I looked down at her shining eyes, I knew this was the moment she would remember, not the whispers on the playground, not the laughter in the cafeteria. This. As the choir finished, the audience rose again in applause. This time I didn't shrink from it. I let it wash over me, not as praise, but as proof that trying, even broken, even trembling, had been worth it. When the program ended and most of the families drifted toward the refreshment tables in the hallway, Anna tugged on my hand. Her eyes were shining the way they did when she discovered a new star in the night sky. "Can we read here, Daddy? Just one book before everyone leaves." The library still pulsed with movement, children flipping pages, teachers guiding groups, parents snapping photos, but something in her voice asked for a pause, a private corner carved from the chaos. I nodded. "Pick one." She darted to the shelves with the quickness of a child who knows exactly what she's searching for. A moment later, she returned hugging a thick book about planets. She dropped into a beanbag, the book sprawling across her lap. "Here," she said, patting the seat beside her. I lowered myself into the beanbag, awkward at first, my knees too high, my frame too large for the cushion designed for smaller bodies. Anna giggled, the sound bubbling out unguarded. "You look funny," she said, "but in a good way." I smiled, loosening, and opened the book. The illustrations glowed. Great swirls of galaxies, rings of Saturn painted gold, comets streaking like brushstrokes across dark pages. My tongue stumbled over some words, astronomical, elliptical, but Anna didn't flinch. She leaned into me, correcting nothing, her finger tracing the pictures while my voice carried the story forward. Around us, the library noise dimmed. A few parents watched quietly from a distance, but no one interrupted. For those minutes, room shrank to only us, my broken English, her eager eyes, the two of us suspended in the orbit of words. "Daddy," she whispered when we reached the page about constellations, "do you think Mommy can see this from where she is?" I swallowed hard. The picture on the page was a scatter of stars, lines connecting them into the shape of a woman holding a torch. I placed my hand over hers. "Yes," I said softly, "she sees, and she is proud." Anna nodded solemnly, then turned the page. When we finished, she closed the book with both hands and looked at me with a seriousness rare for her age. "You know what I told myself today?" "What?" She lifted her chin. "That I don't care if I sound like you. If kids laugh, I'll just tell them my dad built a library. What did yours do?" Her words struck me like a bell. Not bitter, not cruel, simply clear, steady, unshakable. She was no longer carrying my accent as a burden. She was carrying it as a banner. I reached for her cheek, my palm rough against her soft skin. "You are stronger than I ever was at your age." She grinned, the heaviness breaking into light again. "That's because you made me strong." For a long while we sat in silence, the book between us, the library alive around us. I realized this was the real opening ceremony, not the ribbon, not the speeches, not the applause. It was this moment, my daughter resting against me, her pride louder than any whisper in the hallways had ever been. Across the room, the blonde mother with the curls paused on her way out. She looked at us, then at Anna, and for the first time her smile seemed unguarded, touched with something like humility. She didn't approach, didn't speak, but the nod she gave me carried more weight than any speech. Anna gathered her book, hugging it to her chest. "Can we come here every day?" "As often as we can," I said. She twirled once in the open space between shelves, her yellow dress catching the light. For a fleeting second, she looked like the very heart of the mural on the wall, the book that became wings, the child who became flight. And I knew then that whatever came next, the stares, the shifting dynamics, the awkward conversations, this part was untouchable. Anna's pride had rooted deep, like a tree that no storm could unearth. In the weeks after the ribbon cutting, the library became the new heartbeat of William H. Carter Elementary. Every morning I dropped Anna at school and watched as children veered toward the library doors before the first bell. They no longer shuffled through the hallways with eyes half asleep. They hurried, eager, as though the books were calling them by name. Teachers told me later that homework turned in neater, stories written longer, questions bolder. Even the principal admitted during one staff meeting that she had never seen the students so alive with curiosity. But what changed most was not only the children, it was the parents. At first, they still gathered in their tight circles outside the school, their voices carrying the same tone of certainty I had heard for years. Only now, when I walked past, the conversations paused. Heads turned. Eyes followed. Not with dismissal anymore, but with a complicated mixture of curiosity and respect. Some offered nods that were stiff but genuine. A few even crossed the invisible lines to speak. One afternoon, the father in the fleece vest approached me as I was tightening a loose railing near the front steps. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Flores," he said almost formally, "I wanted to apologize. I underestimated you." His gaze dropped to my work-worn hands. I guess we all did. I wiped the dust from my palms and nodded. It's easy to underestimate what you don't see. He shifted uncomfortably, then added, "If you ever need help with anything, let me know. My company has connections. We could partner." The offer surprised me, though I knew it was more than business. It was a recognition that the ground had shifted beneath us. The power balance that had once tilted so heavily toward them had begun to level. The blonde mother with the curls approached me another morning, her daughter clutching a new book to her chest. "Anna's father," she said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "I was wrong about you. I'm sorry." Her daughter tugged her hand impatiently, eager to get inside, but the woman held my gaze for a long moment before following. Even at the PTA meetings, the atmosphere was different. Where once my voice had been drowned out or brushed aside, now silence followed when I raised my hand. They listened, not always comfortably, but earnestly. I spoke less about money now and more about opportunities for the children, after-school programs, reading mentors, even field trips. They nodded, took notes, asked questions. It felt strange, almost disorienting to step into a room where my words carried weight. For years I had been invisible, my accent a barrier, my presence tolerated but not welcomed. Now those same syllables, imperfect as they were, landed differently. They were no longer a source of mockery. They had become part of the story of the library, woven into its walls. Anna noticed too. One afternoon she ran to me, breathless with excitement. "Daddy, Mrs. Thompson asked me to read out loud in class today, and when I finished, the kids clapped." Her cheeks glowed, her voice steady. The girl who once came home in tears now carried herself taller, as if the library itself had given her shoulders new strength. But with the pride came unease too. Some parents still looked at me with hesitation, as though they were recalculating where I fit in their world. Respect does not erase prejudice overnight. There were whispers still, only softer, reshaped by guilt and curiosity. One evening, as I repaired a leaking faucet in the kitchen, Anna sat nearby painting stars across a piece of cardboard. "Daddy," she said suddenly, "before people didn't listen to you. Now they do. Why?" I set the wrench down and wiped my hands. "Because sometimes people need to see something before they believe it. Words are not always enough." She considered this, her brush suspended. "So the library is proof." "Yes," I said, "proof that even if your words are broken, your work can still speak." She smiled, dipping her brush again. "Then I'll let my work speak too." The library had become more than a building. It was a shift in power, not only between me and the parents who once dismissed me, but within Anna herself, within the children who now believed their voices mattered. And though I still stumbled over words, I no longer feared the silence that followed them. The silence was no longer waiting to laugh. It was waiting to listen. Summer crept in slowly, the air heavy with the smell of cut grass and chalk dust fading from the hallways. The library no longer smelled of paint. Instead, it carried the faint perfume of turned pages and the hum of children's voices drifting like music through the open door. Every time I stepped inside, it felt less like a project I had given and more like a living thing that belonged to all of us. Anna spent her afternoons there as if it were her second home. Sometimes I found her curled in the corner with a book about animals. Other times she sat cross-legged at a computer, her face lit by the screen as she clicked through galaxies. Once I caught her reading aloud to younger students who sat around her in a circle. Her voice was steady, proud, unafraid. One evening, long after dismissal, I returned to fix a loose hinge on a cabinet. The building was quiet, the sun pouring through the windows in golden slants. Anna wandered the aisles as though she were exploring a secret kingdom. At one shelf she paused, pulled out a thick book, and opened the front cover. She had written something inside with her careful pencil strokes. "For my daddy who speaks with 2 languages but always with 1 heart." The words stopped me cold. My knees felt weak and I had to sit. She looked up, shy but smiling. "I wanted everyone who opens it to know." I touched the page with my calloused fingers. The letters blurred through the sting in my eyes. "They will know," I whispered. "Even long after we're gone, they will know." That night, as we walked home under a sky smudged with stars, Anna skipped beside me, swinging her empty backpack. "Daddy," she asked suddenly, "what does legacy mean?" I thought carefully before answering. "It means something you leave behind that keeps living even when you cannot, like seeds that grow into trees, or a library that keeps giving stories." She nodded slowly, as if planting the word inside her. The weeks passed and the conversations with parents shifted too. Some still carried hesitation in their eyes, but many now greeted me by name, stopping to ask about plumbing repairs or to thank me for what the library had given their children. A few even admitted their shame. I didn't gloat. Respect, like trust, was not something to be demanded. It was something to be earned, moment by moment. But it wasn't their recognition that mattered most. It was Anna's new lightness, the way she carried herself differently. No longer shrinking at the edges of classrooms, no longer worrying if her voice betrayed her. She had found something inside the walls of that library that no whisper could take away. Sometimes at night, when she had gone to bed and the apartment was quiet, I sat at the table with the ledger. Its pages were still there, numbers lined up like bricks of effort. The total at the bottom had been erased, transformed into shelves, books, beanbags, computers. But what remained was not emptiness. It was fullness, the kind that cannot be measured in dollars. I thought often of Alina. I could almost hear her laugh when I stumbled over a word, the way she would kiss my cheek afterward and remind me, "Don't let them shame you for trying." She had been right. The shame had melted away, replaced by pride, not loud or boastful but quiet, steady, and real. One Friday, Anna and I stopped by the library after the final bell. The place was buzzing with children sprawled across beanbags, their backpacks forgotten. I leaned against the doorway watching them while Anna slipped between shelves. She turned, her eyes bright. "This is my favorite place in the world," she said simply. I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me. For all the nights of sacrifice, for all the years of saving, for every moment of doubt and laughter endured, this was the answer. Not applause, not recognition. Just this: my daughter standing proud in a place built from my trying. Legacy. Thank you so much for following this story until the end. If it touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more stories about family, love, and resilience. Wishing you good health, and may you and your loved ones always find happiness together.